Welcome to my channel. This is Captain BinoyVarakil, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Joseph's College, Kozhikode. We begin a new series of lectures today, and in this series of lectures we discuss Waiting for Godot, the play by Samuel Beckett. Samuel Beckett is in fact the most eminent and influential writer in the mode of literature of the absurd. And he has contributed to both drama and prose fiction, and we know that he wrote initially in the French language and later his works were translated into English. In this series of lectures we are looking at the most significant play of Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot, and there will be 3 lectures in this series. In the first lecture we look at the biographical details of Samuel Beckett. In the second lecture we look at the characters and the summary of the play Waiting for Godot, and in the third lecture we'll be looking at the themes in Waiting for Godot. So welcome to the first lecture on Samuel Beckett, the playwright of Waiting for Godot, the most significant dramatist of the literature of the absurd. We right now look at the biographical details of Samuel Beckett. Samuel Barley Beckett was born on 13th April 1906 at Fox Rock near Dublin as the second son of William and Carrie Beckett. After schooling, he joined Trinity College, Dublin in 1923. He took part in the adventurous cycling expedition to France in 1927. In 1928, he met fellow Irishman James Joyce. From 1928 to 1930, he worked as a lecturer in English in an institute in Paris. In 1931, Beckett was awarded MA degree by Trinity College. In 1957, his play All That Fall was broadcasted by the British Broadcasting Corporation. In 1958, the novel Malone Dies was produced. In 1966, Beckett was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. Now, let us just look at the play Waiting for Godot. Let us see the significance of the play. Waiting for Godot is a play belonging to the theater of the absurd. It was produced between 1945 and 1950 in French and published in 1952 in Paris. In 1954, an English translation was produced in United States of America. It is certainly a revolutionary contribution to English drama. It's a modern morality play comparable to John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. Beckett has borrowed the title from Simon Weil's play Waiting for God. Now let us look at the play Waiting for Godot. In fact, the word absurd means sense of senselessness. Let us look at the characteristics of absurd plays or an absurd play. The term absurd was originated from Martin Eslin's critical work, The Theatre of the Absurd of 1961, which deals mostly with the plays of Eugene Ionesco, Samuel Beckett, Genet, and Harold Pinter. Estlin used the term to describe certain plays written after the Second World War, which reflected the spiritual climate of the age. In Europe, it was a period of disillusionment. The age-old realities of religion and morality stood shattered and were replaced by nothing else. Man, especially the sensitive and intellectual, lived in a void in which all talk about truth, justice, struggle, and dignity seemed meaningless and absurd. The dramatists of the age experimented with diversified themes and different stylistic methods. They had a few characteristics in common in their approach towards life and art. According to Martin Esslin, the theatre of the absurd or avant-garde movement strives to express its sense of senselessness of the human condition and the inadequacy of the rational approach by the open abandonment of rational devices and discursive thoughts. The theatre of the absurd includes a few dramatists of the post-Second World War Europe and America who have given up the time-honored representational method and devised a stage technique combining expressionism and symbolism. The language used in the dialogue is clipped, but the tone satirical. The principal characteristics of the theatre of the absurd are: there is no plot and distinct story. Absurd drama violates all the canons of a traditional play. Dream and fantasy are largely employed. The play does not have subtle characterization and presence, only puppets. The sequence of time is fluid and indefinite. The origin of the school is from French, and the practitioners look at Paris for inspiration and guidance. Eugene Ionesco's Amid, Eugene O'Neill's Iceman Cometh, Edward Albee's Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot are typical examples of the plays out in the school of the theatre of the absurd. Absurd literature or literature of the absurd is applied to a number of works in drama and prose fiction which have in common the sense of the human condition is essentially absurd, and that this condition can be adequately represented only in works of literature that are themselves absurd. Both the mood and dramaturgy of absurdity were anticipated as early as 1896 in Alfred Ruggieri's French play Ubu Roy or Ubu the King. Literature has its roots also in the movements of expressionism and surrealism, as well as in the fiction written in 1920s of Franz Kafka, for example, The Trial and Metamorphosis. The current movement, however, emerged in France after the horrors of World War II as a rebellion against essential beliefs and values of traditional culture and traditional literature. This earlier tradition had included the assumptions that human beings are fairly rational creatures who live in an at least partially intelligible universe, that they are part of an ordered social structure, and that they may be capable of heroism and dignity even in defeat. After the 1940s, however, there was a widespread tendency, especially prominent in the existential philosophy of men of letters such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, to view a human being as an isolated existent who is cast into an alien universe, to conceive the universe as possessing no inherent truth, value, or meaning, and to represent human life in its fruitless search for purpose and meaning as it moves from the nothingness whence it came toward the nothingness where it must end, as an existence which is both anguished and absurd. Now, with this we come to the end of the introductory lecture, and in the second lecture we will be looking at the structure, characters, and the summary of the play, of course, Waiting for Godot. Thank you so much for listening.